It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Brian Beatty, and over the next hour, we're going to talk about all things real estate here in the Charleston area. If this is your first time tuning in, basically what I do with this program is I take national, regional, local news, and then I take my experience as somebody that is in one of the top 1% of agents here in our Charleston market, and I share that experience with you so that if you're considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate, you're an informed consumer, and you have some realistic expectations to take to the marketplace. So if at any point in time you'd like to reach out to me, you're considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I do invite you to give me a call. My number is 843-345-1273. That's my direct line. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold. You can search the MLS, anything for sale in the Charleston area you can find on my website. You can read some testimonials. And if you're thinking about selling your house, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in this program, click on the Sell Your Home tab and learn more about what I do to market my homes for sale. And you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that information. And again, would love the opportunity to earn your business. So let me tell you what I have planned for this next hour. The first thing that I'm going to talk to you about is something that I've been seeing more and more of. It's very concerning to me, and it's something that I need to prepare you for, and that is just scams in real estate. It's happening more and more, and I'm going to focus on that in this first portion of my show. A little bit later on, we're going to talk about commission reductions, whether it comes time to hire a real estate agent or negotiate a purchase agreement. There are several instances in which commission can be reduced, and there are some where they can't be reduced. So I want to talk to you about that. And then a little bit later on, we're going to talk about being a seller in today's market. What does that mean for you? And then we're going to talk about the difference between old school agents and new school agents, primarily focusing on marketing. So that's what we have planned over this next hour. Again, feel free to reach out to me, 843-345-1273, if you have a real estate question, or if there's something I can do to help you, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. So this first segment that I want to talk with you about is just getting scammed in real estate. And as real estate has pushed more and more online over the past 10 years, we've seen an emergence of scams when it comes time to either buy a property or rent a property or whatever the case might be. But the bottom line is it's a reality of shopping for a new house, especially when you're looking online. So I want to give you some tips so that you don't get taken advantage of, especially if you're moving to an area that you've never been to before. And I got to tell you, let me think about the numbers here. I probably get, on average, 2 calls a week, 8, sometimes 10 calls a month from people that say, hey, I saw your listing on Craigslist and I'm interested in taking a look at it. I know that you're asking $1,500 a month for rent. I'm just curious to know if that's negotiable or blah, 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 but can I set up a time to take a look at it? So I have to stop them and I have to say, wait a minute. I don't have anything for rent on Craigslist. I'm not a property manager. I only help people buy and sell real estate. I refer people to property managers if they want to rent or they want their property to be rented. So the fact that you're seeing my listing on Craigslist for rent is concerning to me. It's probably a scam. So tell me a little bit more about that. And usually what I'll hear is that somebody has taken my information from Zillow or Trulia or one of these larger websites and they've put it on Craigslist. They even have it now where they use templates to make the property look really attractive. And so people look at these properties for rent because it's so hard to find something to rent right now. And they click on these properties and they find out that through some sort of sob story, the person had to be relocated. They're helping their sick mother out, or they lost their job and they had to move in with a friend in North Carolina or whatever the case might be. So they can't deal with you directly, but it is their property and they've researched it enough to have a decent understanding of the property and to make it seem as though they're the actual owner. So I have to tell you a really kind of scary and very sad story before I give you some of these tips. There was an agent in my company, Keller Williams Realty, in New York, and he got slapped with a lawsuit. Here's what happened. Somebody from, I think, New Jersey was moving to New York, and they saw this property online, and it had this real estate agent's face on the posting. It had contact information that would appear to be professional in nature. I think they created some sort of email address that used the real estate agent's name at gmail.com. They even had a cell phone that when you called the number, it was this real estate agent's name, and it was like some sort of burner phone, some sort of pay by the minute phone that you can buy at Walmart. And this person had gone through such length to make this scam look real that he printed off a lease agreement that had the real estate agent's logo on it and his contact information on it. I mean, everything that this scam artist did made it appear as though the tenant was talking to a real estate agent. So this family moves to New York. They've sent in their security deposit and their first month's rent, and they don't make a lot of money. This was like all the money they had. They get to New York. They find out the place isn't for rent. In fact, the property doesn't even exist. And should they have done some more homework? Yes. But the bottom line is that money was gone. And to my knowledge, they have not been able to recover that money. But they sued the real estate agent. The real estate agent was on TV. It was this big issue in New York. And the tenant they had to live in a homeless shelter for like 2 months. Well, finally, Keller Williams, so here's the happy ending to the story is that Keller Williams corporate find out about this, of course, and they reimbursed the people the security deposit and their first month's rent. And then they paid for moving expenses. And they paid for their room and board for a full year just to make sure that they were taken care of because these people got taken advantage of by a scam artist. It was a really, really bad situation. And it happens to people all the time. And I'm getting, like I said, 1 to 2, sometimes 3 calls a week about people that have allegedly posted my properties for rent on Craigslist or through some other marketing avenue, and they're posing as landlords so that they can try and take your money. So here are a few tips to make sure that you don't get scammed by some of these people. So number one, probably the biggest tip-off is when people ask you to wire them money or send them money through MoneyGram or Western Union or something like that. So most scams involve wiring of funds. So don't wire your funds to people that you've never met in person before. Number two, something that always kind of tips it off or is a red flag, or just long-distance landlords. Make sure that the person that you're talking to is the actual owner of the property. If you get any sort of inclination that they are not, then ask for some help. Number three, sometimes they'll request like a verification code. They'll send you some sort of code to your cell phone via text or phone call, and once you submit that verification code, then they'll say, send me your bank account information so we can wire the funds. Definitely don't do that. That's always a big red flag. Something that should be pretty common sense, but again, it happens all the time, is just don't share your personal financial information with people until you're absolutely sure that the person you're talking to is the actual owner. Here's another red flag: typos and sob stories. If you look in your spam folder, right? So all those emails that you get from people from, Africa that is some sort of royalty that wants to send you $30 million or whatever the case might be. Obviously, you can tell in those emails through typos, through grammatical errors, through things like spelling words incorrectly, like, the British spelling of the word favor, F-A-V-O-U-R, versus how we spell it, favor, F-A-V-O-R, usually is some sort of tip-off that this could potentially be a scam, right? And so how do you verify this information? Well, when in doubt, I think the easiest thing to do is to just ask a real estate agent. Ask a real estate agent if the person that you're communicating with has their property for rent with a real estate agent or with a property management company. verify in some form or fashion that the person that you're talking to is the person that owns the property. I'd be willing to bet that if you took the simple step of calling a real estate agent and saying, hey, is this property for rent? Because I can't find it for rent anywhere else other than with this guy on Craigslist that's an out-of-state owner of the property that wants me to send him some money. And I do this all the time for people because I don't want people to get taken advantage of. And I think it's our job as real estate agents to protect the public. So if you see anything that looks to be a potential scam, the first thing you need to do is contact a real estate agent, make sure that the person you're communicating with is the actual owner of the property. And we've got some ways of doing that through tax records and so on and so forth. I have a database that searches for people's contact information and verifies it with social media and so on and so forth. So there's plenty of stuff out there to determine whether or not the person you're communicating with is the actual owner. But you certainly need to flag those listings through Craigslist or through whatever website you're on as a potential scam. And then maybe that website will go and they'll verify that that posting is an actual real person that actually owns the property. Any other questions about this? Any other information you think is worth sharing? Please contact me. Or if you want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, please do contact me. My number is 843-345-1273. My website is listingsincharleston.com. When I come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this subject, but we're going to transition and we're going to talk about commission reductions. When to do it, when is it appropriate, when is it not appropriate, all that and more as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. That's lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. WTMA. Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks again for joining me this morning. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. And if at any point in time you have any questions, comments, concerns, stories you want to share about the real estate market, or if you're considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I'd like the opportunity to have that discussion with you and potentially own your business. I can be reached at 843-345-1273, or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, search the MLS, read some testimonials. And if you're thinking about selling your house, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about what I do to market my properties for sale, the success I've had with that. And you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that, or give me a buzz, 843-345-1273. So if you're just joining us, we were just talking about scams in real estate, primarily as it relates to renting a property, especially in areas that you've never been in before. So if you're missing that or just coming into the program, go to listingsincharleston.com Sunday or Monday, and we'll have that up on the website for you to take a look at. But that's really important stuff, guys. Really just make sure that you're being careful, because there's plenty of people out there that will gladly take your money. Let me switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about, since we're talking about money, let's talk about commissions. It's always a very, very sensitive subject between agents and their clients. While it's not so much sensitive for the seller, because if they ask, then sometimes agents will say, oh, yeah, sure. But then you, of course, got agents that work really hard, and they are so much different from just the average Joe Schmo agent that they feel like a standard commission of 6% is more than fair for everything that they do to sell their properties. And I have to say, self-admittedly, that I am one of those agents. Interestingly, on some of the appointments that I've been on so far this year, you've got some agents that are they're always going to charge less commission. There's 5%, 4.9%, whatever the case might be. We go up against those agents in everyday life here in our real estate market. And I have to ask, what is it that they're providing to that seller, and how does that differ from what I'm doing at 6% commission? Where is the value to the client? Where's the value to the seller? But you've also got people, very interestingly, that are charging as much as 9% commission. There's no way in any stretch of the imagination that I would pay a 9% commission for somebody to sell my property when I can get a highly skilled, professional, experienced agent to sell it for 6% commission. I don't see where that extra 3% comes into play. Maybe I don't understand their model, but not of any way, shape, or form of interest to me. So I'm going to pay what's fair. I'm going to pay what's standard, and I'm going to expect that the professional that I hire is going to do everything that they say they're going to do to sell my property, whatever that is, whatever the marketing plan is in association with that commission structure. And obviously, I have some things that I do to help you all understand that when I take a listing and when I sit down with people and I go through everything I'm going to do to sell my properties for sale, that as long as your home qualifies, as long as you're in a situation in which the 59-day home sale guarantee can apply, then there's the potential for you to pay 4.5% commission. So when we're talking about reducing commissions, I want to tell you kind of an interesting thing that happened not recently. This was quite a while ago. This hasn't happened to me in a while, but it happened to one of the agents that on my team spoke with another buyer that was interested in somebody else's listing. So it's kind of a roundabout way of explaining this story, but here's what happened. A buyer saw a property online. He saw that it was under contract and that there was a kick-out clause in place. So whenever you see a property online with a kick-out clause, it usually means that the buyer that has made an offer to the seller has a home that they need to sell first. And the kick-out clause states that if another buyer comes in, they have the ability to potentially kick out that buyer if they don't have a home to sell. So kick-out clauses, it depends on the addendum that you're using to the contract, but the general gist of a kick-out clause is that if I'm going to make you an offer and I have to sell my house first, I'm susceptible to somebody else kicking me out of that deal if they don't have a home to sell and they make a better offer. So the kick-out clause says that I have 48, 72 hours, somewhere around there, to either remove that contingency to purchasing the property, i.e., I'm going to proceed to closing regardless of whether or not my home sells, assuming I have the ability to do that, or I'm going to move to a backup position and I'm going to let this other buyer swoop in and be the primary contract. Well, what this buyer wanted to do, because this buyer was unrepresented, they did not want a real estate agent's help, is what they were going to listing agents and they were saying, hey, I will work with you to purchase this property and I want you to do it for a 4% commission. I want you to help this seller save some money by working with me directly. And here's my offer. So you're going to earn 1% more than you usually would by working with me directly. And so there are obviously some issues with that. And so this happened to me quite a while ago, and I'm going to tell you now what I told them then, which is that number one, because this person wanted to buy a house that was already under contract and they wanted to kick out this buyer by using an attractive offer with something like, hey, I'll only pay 4% commission. The seller will save 2% commission. The real estate agent will earn 1% more and everybody will be happy. I hope everybody's following so far. My response as the listing agent said, number one, I represent the seller. Okay. So anything that you tell me, as long as you are not my client, I then I'm contractually bound to share this information with my seller. So you can tell me whatever you'd like as long as you understand that I do not represent you. And the big issue here is that he wanted me to reduce my commission in order to get this deal put together. Well, the problem with that is that when I'm hired by a seller, before we even sign a listing agreement, we discuss who I will represent in the transaction, both today and tomorrow when a buyer comes along, and how much commission I will earn in association with those things. So the buyer has to understand that I represent the seller's best interest, and the sellers are protected by the listing agreement in terms of confidentiality, my ability and my contractual requirement to try and sell their home for the most amount of money possible, the least amount of stress, all those things that you get when you're represented by a real estate agent. But it also states that the commission is purely between the owner and the listing broker. A buyer that tries to interfere with that contract has no right to do so. The buyer has no control over the commission that the seller pays the listing agent. Because the bottom line is, when the listing agent and the seller sat down and we talked about everything that we're going to do to market our properties for sale to try and find you a buyer, we decided at that point in time how much the commission was going to be. And it's not fair for a buyer to come in and try and control how much commission I receive, nor is it fair for them to do that in conjunction with trying to take away my seller's equity. Because again, I represent the seller. I'm here to try and sell it for the most money possible. So we could get really deep into it and say that there's a tortious interference with the contract between the listing agent and the seller. I don't want to get that deep into it, but the bottom line is the buyer has no control over the commission that I earn, because if I have to represent the seller and I have to help this buyer make sure that, because I'm contractually bound to do so, that they do all their stuff in an appropriate way, in a legal way, that's not worth 1% commission to me. I would earn 3% if I represented a buyer to do the exact same thing. So there's absolutely zero advantage for me to only earn 1% more and do twice the amount of work. So I don't think buyers are thinking through this. And I get this every once in a while. Hey, I want you to represent me and I want you to do it for a 3% commission. Why? Why would I do that? And if you're a seller and you're listening and you're saying, well, why would the listing agent do that to the seller? Because it's the listing agent's job to bring any and all offers. Well, yes, it is our job to produce any and all offers, but the commission that we discussed when we signed that listing agreement is the commission that we expect to receive at closing for doing all of the things that we're supposed to do, all the things that we said that we were going to do to find that buyer in the first place. But the last thing that I said to this buyer was that if they had an effective buyer agent, they would have found that house before it even went under contract, and they wouldn't be in this position in the first place. So some things to think about as far as it relates to commission reduction. Now, when you go and you sell your house, you are, the real estate commission, the MLS, the Board of Realtors does not control commission rates. I could charge a 50% commission if I wanted to. Nobody in their right mind would pay it. But the point is, real estate commissions do not control commission. It's up to whatever the seller is willing to pay. Or if a buyer is represented by an agent, whatever the buyer might be willing to pay. There's a few different ways of going about it. But yes, commissions are negotiable. They are conversations that I think are appropriate at the point in time that you're ready to sell based on your specific situation. And it's, again, it's always a sensitive subject for real estate agents, but I don't get offended when people ask, and I just hope that they don't get offended when I explain to them everything that I'm going to do to just earn what is fair, to earn what all the other agents in our market earn that likely do half the amount of work that I do. So that's my little spiel on commission. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me, 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. Stick around as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
The Big Talker WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. This is the point in the program where I like to say thank you for everybody that tunes in, listens to this program. I really appreciate everybody that reaches out to me that needs to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, and that has used this show as a vehicle to become a more educated consumer as it relates to the real estate market, which is all this show is about, is helping you understand what's going on in our market right now, giving you some solid educational pieces, as well as my experiences as somebody that, already have sold 75 homes or so this year, so that when it comes time for you to do something in real estate, you know what questions to ask, you have realistic expectations, and you're just an informed consumer. So if there's anything that I can do to help you with regard to your real estate needs, please feel free to contact me directly. My number is 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, learn more about me, my experience. And if you're thinking about selling your house, which is what we're going to talk about right now, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about my marketing, what I've done in the past in terms of my results. And you can learn more about my 4.5% commission 59-day home sale guarantee. So all of that and more, listingsincharleston.com. So let me talk to you a little bit about being a seller in this market. Over the past few years, things really have shifted. They have shifted from being a buyer's market to a normal market and to now a seller's market. And so what is a seller's market? Let's just define that for a moment. A seller's market is when there is a lack of inventory and more buyers than there are sellers. When buyers start to compete over fewer listings, they are willing to pay more, which drives up pricing, which is in essence what defines a seller's market, the ability for sellers to charge more based on limited inventory. It's just simple supply and demand. So in this market, in many areas of the Tri-County area, we are in a seller's market. There's just not a lot out there. And it's been very interesting over the past 30 days to see our market really take shape as we become full swing into our spring market. This is really the telltale sign of how our market is going to shape up for the rest of the year in terms of what's happening right now. And what I mean by that is, I gauge how many clicks my properties are getting online, my listings. How many clicks are they getting through Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com, and how many views are they getting through the MLS? How many showings are we getting on a weekly basis? How many people are contacting us to determine whether or not they want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? I monitor all of that stuff, and then, of course, I look at the sales, the new listings, everything coming on the market, and I try and give my clients an idea of what's happening right now. And if you really focus hard on the market, if you really are entrenched in the market like I am, as somebody that, last year we did 100 deals, this year we've already got 75 pending and sold. It's a very busy time, and it's a very busy market. And I don't say those numbers to brag. I say those numbers to say that it's a great market, especially if you're a seller. But I do want to give some sellers some advice, and there have been a few items of frustration that I have had to get through over the past few weeks. So I'm going to give you an idea of what those things are. Number one, let me say this, okay? If you've been on the market for several months or longer and you have not received an offer on your house, yet you've gone through the trouble of keeping your house clean every day and letting people go inside your house, you've approved all of these showings, and you finally get an offer, please don't reject that offer. We had a buyer agent on our team that submitted an offer to a seller. They'd been on the market for a long time, never had seen an offer, and the buyer submitted a cash offer, and they said, hey, here's an offer. Here's the proof of funds. Here's when we can close. Here's why we're offering what we're offering. Please let me know the seller's response by no later than 5 p.m. tomorrow. So the seller, first of all, says, it's a really busy work week. I'll get back to you this weekend. This is a Monday, folks. That's not going to fly. I don't understand the seller's mentality here. They've been on the market for so long. They finally get an offer. And then he says, give me 5 or 6 days and I'll get around to it when I get to it, I guess. I don't know. Secondly, several days go by. It's, I think, Thursday or Friday at this point. And the listing agent calls up the buyer agent on my team and he says, hey, the seller's going to reject the offer. So my buyer agent says, why? He says, well, it's just, it's not a good enough offer for them to sell at that price. Well, what is a good enough offer for them to sell? Clearly, they have some level of motivation to sell if their house is on the market. And clearly, since nobody has been willing to pay what they have it listed for the past 9 months, then the market's suggesting it's worth less. So what would be a good counter from your seller? Let's negotiate. And the buyer agent said, hey, I've tried. I just can't get the seller to communicate with me, and they're going to reject the offer. How ridiculous, really. I mean, if you're a seller and you've let what will likely have been dozens of people through your house to view it, and you've gone through all of that trouble, your real estate agent's gone through all of that trouble of finally getting to the point where you have an offer to negotiate, and you just say, meh, you throw it in the trash. It's ridiculous. The way that I look at it is this. You spend all of this time training for, the 100-yard sprint or the 100-meter sprint. And you line up next to a few other people that represents, the buyers or your competition, and you're in great shape, and you're ready for the race. The gun goes off, and then you get a few steps down the road, and then you pull your hamstring, and you're not able to finish the race. That's how I envision getting to the point where you make an offer. You get an offer, you start running, you try to get to the finish line being, of course, an agreement that you and the seller have reached, but you take yourself out of the race because you didn't stretch properly. You pulled a hamstring. So what happens in that situation? The seller clearly is offended at a low offer, so they reject it. The buyer gets offended because the seller rejected the offer, even though they've been on the market for 9+ months. So rather than having two interested parties that have the same goal of buying and selling real estate, working together to try and make a deal, both parties are just pissed and nothing happens. And it's been this huge waste of time. We finally get to the point where we have something that we can negotiate here, and you don't even try. Now, I don't want people out there to think that I'm a proponent of countering every single offer that you get. And this is not a situation where the house was listed for $500,000 and they offered $200,000. I think they were 10% off of the asking price, which is a totally reasonable percentage for the first offer. Now, I normally represent sellers, okay? I have buyer agents that represent buyers, and I coach my buyers to call those listing agents and say, hey, what is something that you know for a fact your seller would counter with if we were to make an offer? What's really important to this seller about this deal? Is it the amount of time they need to sell their property? Is it purely price driven? Is there anything else that I should know before I write this offer, because I want it to be a strong offer? Now, if I were a listing agent and a buyer agent called me like that, which people don't, agents don't, they don't even present the offer most of the time. They just send me an email saying, hey, here's an offer, please confirm receipt. I mean, no work, no effort is going into the art of negotiations here. And it's kind of silly when you think about it. But the bottom line is, if you're a seller in this market, number one, don't put your house on the market if you're not ready to sell it. Okay? Don't put people through the exercise of going to see your house, doing the comps, doing this, that, and the other, sending in an offer, and then you just saying, I'm not really interested. You got to negotiate a little bit here, especially if you've been on the market for a long period of time. Secondly, I will say that if you're not ready to move, don't put your house on the market, because I have had plenty of people, my own sellers included, that when we sat down, they said, we're ready to go. We're ready to sell the house. And I got an offer within a week, and they said, well, the more and more we think about it, I don't know if we can be out of here in 30 days. I think we might need like 60 or 90 days to get our affairs in order. We just didn't think it was going to take this much time. Now, of course, I understand that as well. There's a lot that goes into moving. I'm doing it right now with my wife and my 8-month-old daughter. There's nothing easy about moving, even though we're moving 1.5 miles down the road. Think about moving across country. My God. But anyways, the point is, if you're a seller in this market, your home is priced well, it's in good condition, it's marketed properly, it will more than likely sell quickly. So just be prepared for that. If your house is not selling, that's what I want to talk to you about next. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Again, feel free to reach out to me if you want to sell your house. Listingsincharleston.com, or call me at 843-345-1273. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 8 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston, as we finish up this program, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Thanks again for joining me this morning. If you're just tuning in, you're just getting around to your Saturday or Sunday morning, we've already talked about quite a bit this morning. We've talked about getting scammed in real estate and how to avoid that. We've talked about commissions, when to reduce them, are they negotiable, who sets the standard for the commission, and whether or not they can be reduced, and when. We've talked about selling your house in this market. And what I want to talk about now is if your house isn't selling, what's going wrong? And I want to talk about this idea of the old agent mentality versus the new agent mentality, old school versus new school. So that's what I want to finish this show talking about. If you have any questions, you're thinking about selling your house, there's anything that I can do for you real estate related, please don't hesitate to give me a call personally. I can be reached at 843-345-1273 or by going to my website, listingsincharleston.com, where you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold. Search the MLS, and if you're thinking about selling your home, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about what I do to market my properties, the success I've had with that, and then click on the contact button for more information on my 59-day home sale guarantee, which is a 4.5% commission incentive for anybody thinking about selling their house. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that. So we were talking about how I've had some instances in the past month or so where sellers either put their house on the market, got an immediate offer, and then weren't ready to move, so they had to reject the offer. Or on the flip side of that, we had sellers that were on the market for almost a year that decided to just decline an offer outright, a good offer, a good initial offer at least, and just the process of working through selling real estate in a seller's market. So what's happening if you've had your home on the market, it's not on the market anymore because it didn't sell? Let's talk about this idea of the old school agent mentality versus the new school agent mentality. And let me first say that there are a few things in our industry, the real estate industry, that will never change. Number one is generating leads. If we can't find people to help buy and sell real estate, we are literally out of business. Number two, sharing our knowledge with our clients. There is an overwhelming amount of information online about the home buying and home selling process. But at the end of the day, people want to rely on professionals that are entrenched in the markets they serve so that you can rely on our individual experiences to help you become as prepared and informed as possible. And then number three, probably the most important, is providing top-notch service. That's really what sets a lot of real estate agents apart from one another, is their ability to service their clients. It's not all about going and getting as many people as you can to help buy and sell real estate. It's about taking care of the people that have hired you to do a job. Okay? So let's talk about the old school versus new school approach. Old school. Think about this for just a second. As of maybe 15 years ago, maybe even a little bit before that, there wasn't this huge abundance of information online that the general public could use to search for real estate. Real estate agents used to be the gatekeepers of that information. And before interactive MLS programs, they'd have to carry around this huge binder, which represented everything for sale in that market. Well, obviously times have changed. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of websites that are available to buyers in any given geographic area to get information about properties or neighborhoods or agents or basically whatever kind of information they want to find. They have a way of finding it and becoming at least somewhat educated about that property, about that area, about that subdivision, about that real estate agent, so on and so forth. And so if you're an old school agent, what are you going to do? You're going to put the sign in the yard, right? You're going to put it on the MLS. You might do some form of direct mail advertising. You might put it in a newspaper. You might put it in a magazine. Do those things work? Yes, but once in a blue moon. If you look at the way in which buyers respond to advertising, over half of the traffic that we get as real estate agents is online traffic. They go online, they search for real estate. 70% of the traffic that we have online is from mobile devices, phones and tablets. So if the websites that they're looking at aren't mobile friendly, or if you, the old school agent, you're not texting yet, I mean, give me a break. You're losing a ton of business. And what you also have to understand is that 1/3 of home buyers in our market right now were born around 1980. The millennials are of sorts. They're 25, 30 years old. They're looking to buy their first house. And guess what? Not everybody wants to chat on the phone. A lot of people prefer these days emails and texts. Yes, it's not as personal as a phone call. I would prefer to talk to somebody over the phone so that I can really help understand what they want and need and apply a plan accordingly. But most people, especially younger people, don't want to sit on the phone for 30 minutes. They would prefer to just write an email on their own time or send a quick text, whatever the case might be. But the failure of old school agents to adopt to all of the new technology out there is going to cost them business. It's going to cost you, the seller, potentially buyers, if they're not in the areas that people are searching within, which is mostly online. Okay? So if they're just relying on the MLS and the sign in the yard and some print advertising, they're missing it. Okay? Whereas new school agents, to their detriment at times, can be so focused on the processes and the systems and the online tools that help them run their business that they've lost that personal touch with people. So there's this fine line between having a good foundation of principles to go off of that help you run your business and help you service your clientele, but that also takes advantage of all of the tools and systems and processes and programs out there to help you run a more efficient business and help your sellers sell their house by reaching the people that are using those avenues. It's mostly online these days. And think about it. If you think about social media for a second and the fact that Instagram, anybody that posts a property on Instagram that has the use of those different filters treats themselves as a professional photographer of sorts. Photography is kind of in right now because it's so easy to do and because camera phones are so awesome with regard to their resolution. So guess what? Most people have become accustomed to very nice photos of everything. They're not going to tolerate your crappy looking photos online. Sorry. It's just kind of blunt, but if agents aren't out there displaying their properties in a way that really appeals to the masses by using professional photography, by making sure that those listings look good online, it's like what I say whenever I list a home for sale. My marketing motto is simple. I want my house to be the prettiest girl at the dance. So that means that we're going to do everything we can to make sure that when your home is posted online, it is not skipped over by people that are so picky in what they're looking at that they might potentially pass over your listing if it doesn't look good enough. And think about it. If you've been looking at real estate recently, you've done this. You've looked at a bunch of properties, probably dozens, and the ones that look really pretty are the ones that command more of your time. The ones that don't look good or that had camera phone photos or a little crappy phone that they bought at Walmart, sorry, it just doesn't cut it. It's just not good enough anymore. So the old school approach of, picking up the phone and making some contacts and putting it on the MLS, does it work? Can it work? Sure. But as a seller that's interested in selling their property for top dollar, I think you want an agent that understands how people want to be communicated with, how they're searching for real estate, where they're looking, what's important to them. And then at the end of the day, all of that means nothing if the real estate agent you choose to hire can't have an intelligent conversation about that potential buyer about your house, right? So that's it for me. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you're thinking about buying or selling, feel free to reach out to me directly. I can be reached at 843-345-1273 or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. Thanks again for joining me on this edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.